Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechta Shavuot daf Lamed Zayin. We're going to begin on the bottom of Lamed Vav Lamed Beis. We just finished in yesterday's daf this very lengthy Mishnah, which is the beginning of the Perek Shavuot Apikadin. So we learned that when it comes to multiple situations, a person can say, you have something of mine in your domain. Either it's as a pikadon, safekeeping, or it's gazela. I think that you stole something, or there was something which was lost, and you still have it, and you're supposed to return it to me. This person is kaifer, he denies it, and then afterwards it turns out that wasn't true, so therefore he has a chiyuv of bringing a carbon. He has the obligation of having to bring a carbon, and on this, the Gemara says as follows. Rav Acha bar Huna, Rav Shmuel beredu Rabba bar Chana, as well as Rav Yitzchak beredu Rav Yehuda, these three people, tenu Shavuos be Rabba. So they were learning the dinim of Shavuos in front of Rabba. Upagabahu Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana encountered them, and Omer Lahu, as we continue on Simon Aleph, he said to them the following. He said this following statement. Hizid b'shvuos b'kadon. Now, when it comes to shvuos b'kadon, it's unusual because normally, for example, like shvuos b'toy, of course, it says v'nelam, so therefore it's dafke b'shoigig but not b'mezid. However, when it comes to shvuos b'kadon, so you're chayiv even when it comes to even b'mezid. Now, the question is v'hisru bo mahu. Is it different in the event that you were given hasra before? Because you can't possibly say hasra in the case of, again, Shavuos Bitoy, Shavuos Eidos, because you don't know necessarily that they're going to lie or anything like that. So it's not a case where you can give hasra. Says Rashi, so the question is, what's the din when it comes to Shavuos B'Kadon? Here's the Shavuos B'Kadon, the Hisru Mahu, Chayiv Carbon, O Malchus, O Shteim. What's the din? If you're given hasra and then you violate the Shavuos B'Kadon, are you chayav carbon? Are you chayav malchus? Or maybe both? Now, v'gam Shavuos Eidos, as we saw in the previous parak, afgav the chayav nami mezid k'shoigeg. So, according to Shavuos Eidos, it's possible that you could be chayav even b'mezid. Leika limeboy hachboya. That question was not posed. When it comes to Shavuos Eidos, it's not possible. Mishum in hasras vaday b'Shavuos Eidos. Demi yodeya shehim yoidim mo Eidos yochel hisris bo. By Shavuos Eidos, it isn't a good hasra. It's almost like hasra suffix. You don't know whether or not this person is what the person is going to say. If he knows Eidos, he doesn't know Eidos. So there's no question between hasra or no hasra. We don't not machalik. However, there could be a question by Shavuos B'Kadon when it comes to Asra. Says the Gemara. Kivan de Chidishu, the B'chol Tara, Ashchan, Mezid, and Maisi carbon, typically, we don't find that you have to bring a carbon. Now, says Rashi, Lav Davka Kol Tara Kaimer, Shahari, Dalad Mevian Al Zadin Kishkoga. There are other times when you do bring even it's b'mezid, but it's not a typical situation. V'hacha ma'isi carbon here you do even it's b'mezid, so therefore loshna asube loshna lo asube. Maybe it doesn't make a difference if you're given hasra or not. The dinim don't change because the whole matter is a chiddush. O dilma hanimil heicha do asube. Maybe the only time you have to bring a carbon is only when you were not given hasra. Heicha de asube, when you're given hasra, milkalaki. Carbon lo meisi. Maybe you'll get malchus instead with hasra, and you won't bring a carbon. Odilma habaha avidna. Maybe without hasra, then you have to bring a carbon. However, if you do get hasra, maybe you're not just do you get malchus, but you get malchus in addition to the carbon. So actually, we have an answer to this question. Chamura himena Shavuos B'Kadon, that Shavuos B'Kadon has more stringencies than Shavuos Ha'edos. First of all, shechayavan al zadana makas. It says that only when it comes to Shavuos B'Kadon is there a possibility of getting makos. However, when it comes to Shavuos Edus, there's no makas. Shavuos Edus, again, there's a din of having to bring a carbon, but not malchus. And when it comes to the din of Shavuos Bikadain, it's a carbon kavua. It's an osham, and it's a certain amount of money. It's not, for example, when it comes to the Shavuos Edus. By Shavuos Edus, as we said, also by Shavuos Bitoy, the din is it's a carbon oiv yored. So based on your monetary situation, your financial situation. So we find in a couple situations that Shavuos Hapikadon is more chomer. Again, first of all, because of makas, and second, the carbon is more expensive. Now, probably the fact that it mentions malchus probably means you got hasra for that. The carbon malchus in carbon low. It's mashma the only you have malchus but not a carbon. So what do we see? That's what happens. That without hasra, then without hasra you get you're chayv a carbon. With hasra you get malchus. So the question is my chumrah. So why is it a chumrah? When it comes to hasra with malchus, because the nichle inish the mesi carbon v'lilki. What would you rather? Give a carbon, which costs you maybe a few $100, or get malchus, which is the Gemara in malchus, which we saw not too long ago. You can almost get killed by it, right? It's a very serious thing. So obviously, this would be a proof that you would only get one, not the other. It's proof that it cannot be both, because if it was both, then obviously a person would, it could be both, but it's possible that, again, we see that when there is hasra, you get malchus. Without hasra, it's a carbon. So Amalhu Rav Bar Isi Mantana Zadan Shavuos Bikadain Lo Nitain Lekapara. Who's the one that says that when it comes to Shavuos Bikadain, it's not Lekapara, if it was done b'mezid? Rav Shimon, as we saw previously, because he compares it to Me'ila. Of Rabbanan Carbonami Mesi. Now Yitaka do bring a carbon. So according to this, we say no, it's not the case. So let's look at Rashi again. So again, the truth is, it's the whole in the kasha. It wasn't really a chiddush, such a huge chiddush. There are sometimes b'mezid you bring carbon. For example, Habal Shivcha, the Nozer Shenitma, the Shavuos Edus, the Shavuos Bikadain. So we find that these things do take place. Rashi says Shavuos Bikadain Shechayven al Zadonu Makis V'Ashkagas Osham B'Kesef Shkolim. Now, but the Gemara al Zadonu Makis Mechal D'Yisrubei. When it mentions b'mezid, you get malchus, must be you're given hasra. The carbon malchus in carbon low, and therefore that's the raya. So and again, going to Rashi, continuing to the next Rashi, malchus in carbon loy, my chumra the malchus carbon hoyel v'lo turvayu avdinan bay. You don't get both. So instead, without hasra, you get you have to bring a carbon osham. With hasra, you get malchus. The oil carbon equal rabbanon b'hachmas disan the tani carbon lo Reb Shimon he. The carbon Shavuos Bikadain nitin zedaino kapara. Get Rabbi Perikol El shechenu osubo mushav kanishme is a kashaygeg. Okay, so according to him, when it comes to Shavuos Eidos, the din is it's like me'ila. It's only b'shaygeg, not b'mezid. Amar Rav Kahana lo tidchak. Shimon. Don't force yourself to say that it has to be like the shita of Rav Shimon. Umay chumra hab Shavuos Eidos nam is a dain v'shkagas carbon. The chumra is that b'mezid and b'shagig you have to bring a carbon. So haynu chumra the il be'eidos chatus he v'lo nasna ba Torah kitzva v'yichol l'knaisa b'makesa danka. Shtus v'hainu ma she echem shisha b'dinner. So it can be even a small amount. Let's look at the Gemara first. Only Rav Kahana bar mina de'ahi de'ana tenina le v'hachia tenina la. We learn this. It says like this. Echad zedayin. It says beferish. It was b'mezid. V'echad shkagasa asham b'kesef shkolim. Now the fact that it mentions b'mezid that you pay that you have to bring a carbon asham, which is mashma that even with hasra you still have to do so. My chumrah. So then what's the chumrah? The iul hasam chatas bas danka. When we're talking about shvus edus, really you have to bring, when you get hasra, maybe you have to get malchus and you still have to bring the carbon. So what's the difference between shvus edus and shvus b'kadain? Because by shvus ha'edus, it can even be a danka, 6 of a sela. The hacha asham kesef shkolim. However, here it must be a set amount. So this brisa doesn't mention malchus at all, so it's not a proof at all, right? This we clearly doesn't even say anything about malchus, so you don't know anything about whether the person would get malchus. So ligmar mina says Rashi. So mishab en the ma'isi carbon v'lo loki. If it's not mentioned anything about, it doesn't mention anything about malchus over here, so probably means you don't get malchus even with hasra. No dilmo dil asrube. Maybe the only reason why you don't get malchus is because in this case, in this brisa, is only because there was no hasra. However, with hasra, maybe taki they would. So our question is, when there is hasra and there is a warning, is there malchus as well? So it may be that this could be a proof to it. It's not so clear. Loshen achar tashema ein hachayavin al shkagasa. Mahin chayav al zedaina asham b'keser shkolim. So when you're chayav on a shaygeg, you're not chayav the same as a mezid. So my love bida asrube. Probably you're talking about with hasra, and maybe it's telling you that it's with malchus. Achanami do asrube. No, all it's talking about there was no hasra, but maybe if there was hasra, maybe you would get malchus. Tashma lo. No. Ima marta ben nazir tamei. When it comes to someone who's a nazir, who is tamei, shachin loike, that if he became tamei b'mezid, so the din is that he is chayiv. He's going to get malchus for that, for becoming tamei b'mezid. Taimer b'shvus b'kadon sheinu loike. It says beferish by shvus b'kadon there is no malchus. Now when it comes to loike, it does mention that when it comes to nazir tamei, he gets malchus. Obviously, he did it b'mezid to get malchus. Also, b'chal the isrube, he must have gotten hasra. The timer b'shvus b'kadon sheinu loike of a carbon ma'isi. So actually, we see with hasra, it doesn't make any difference. He will not get malchus. He just brings a carbon. So that's a raya. There's no malchus. No, my enu loika the enu nifter b'malchus. It just means that he won't be potter with malchus, but he'll also need to bring a carbon as well. So that's all it means. So machlal the nazir tami the potter b'malchus ha carbon sibe. So what is that mashma? By nazir tami, once he gets malchus, he doesn't have to bring a carbon. What do you mean? The pasuk says explicitly, as Rashi quotes, "The Hizar Hashem es yimein Yisrael behavi keves ben shenasai." So what do you mean? The fact that he's getting malchus by nazir, he doesn't have to bring a carbon. He still has to bring a keves ben shenasai. So that's not how you read it doesn't read. So hasam demaisi carbon. Over there, he brings a carbon kihechi the techel and the zirus but the hayra. It's just in order that he should be able to start his counting of the zirus but the hara. Says Rashi, shamas limna is me'achshav. You can count from now. But tol kosab carbon v'lo kapara huba. That carbon is not a kapara carbon, and therefore, yeah, you're right. He does nazir tami does have to bring a carbon, and he also he does have to bring a carbon. However, that's a carbon just so that he can start counting nazirus but the hara. However, again, the fact that it mentions when it comes to a nazir who becomes tamei b'mezid, that he gets malchus, is not a raya to anything when it comes to shvus b'kadon. Even though it says she'enu loike, it doesn't mean that he doesn't get malchus. It means that he will not be potter from bringing the carbon by getting malchus, but maybe he has to get both. So Amru Rabbanan Kamei the Rabbi. So this is said, and Omru Hu, so Rabbi said, Mechlal Dechilu Asrbe, we can infer that in the event that there was no Hasra, V'ika Eidim, but there were witnesses, Mechayev, that he would actually be Chayev a carbon. So, Kfiras Devarim Ba'almahu, Almak Salva Rabba HaKaifer Ba'mam and Sheshul of Eidim Potter. So, let's hold off on this. Let's look at Rashi. Now, B'chlad Depshitale Dechilu Asrbe Hani Sahadi, if those witnesses did not give Asra, the Mechayiv carbon, then we're going to say that he's still to bring a carbon. Says Rashi, well, even though they ate him, no. Why should we have a carbon? It didn't help. Potter carbon, right? He should be potter from a carbon. So we're going to end up seeing that this will be a tiyufta on the next daf on Lamed Zayin Aleph. Okay, so the person is potter because the Adam there are Adam there anyway. You really did nothing by lying, since you're not believed anyway, or you're chayiv since those Adam could die and not be made against you. So when it says that he denied it, that's probably moida. That excludes where he admits, like moida b'kanas. When you're moida. Well, echem min achin or echem min ashutmin, to one of the brothers or to one of the partners, says Rashi. Sheishul cheluk b'momen zeh, he has a portion in it. Fine. And then it says v'nishmal sheker pra l'loiva b'shtar, or for that matter v'loiva, to the lender or to the borrower, be'edim, with witnesses, says Rashi. Causing the kaifer mamoin sheishul of shtar edim. So Omule imishum ha, if it's this lo tesayin, that doesn't prove anything. But Omer lavisi, person says I borrowed, and v'lo lavisi be'edim, but not in front of witnesses. Lavisi v'lo lavisi b'shtar, borrowed but not with a star. So my midiktani v'chichish ba, from the fact that it says v'chichish ba, prat lo moida le'echad min achin le'echad min ashutvan. V'hay le'echad min ha'achim ha'achin hechidami. What exactly does this mean? To exclude one of the brothers. Is it that he's admitting to his 50%? So he should be chayav because there's kfir on the other side, on the other half. Now, the brother said, mitarinan yazaft, that you borrowed. The Armelahu lo me'echad minaychu yasvi. From one of you I borrowed. The havile kfiris devarim ba'alma, that's kfiris devarim. U'midaresh kfiris devarim, sevanam kfiris devarim. Siman chaber kisos debal bayis chaymer nezira. Okay, let's slow down just for a moment and let's look at question 9. Mehem gimel hastadim shnistapku b'chiyuv al nishma b'shvuas b'kadayin. So what are the three possibilities? Either you're chayiv only a carbon, you're only chayiv malchus, or you're chayiv both. That's all that question 9 is. TA 1. Okay, we didn't do that yet. TB 2. Says like this: that you admitted to one of the brothers, so I wrote kasher echem moida al chatzi, one of them admitted to half, that his chelik is potter from a shvua. That's what the answer is, which we just read. Let's just read this again. So it says, so we say Elav, the Amrule, the brother said, mitarinan yas, that you borrowed, the Amrulhu, lo, mechad minayechu yasvi, from one of you two guys I borrowed, dahavile kfiras devarim ba'alma. That's just considered to be kfiras devarim, and that's the answer to that question. That's TB 2. Okay, let's keep going. Tashma, hayushtei the edim. You have two groups of witnesses that kafar harishayna. The first group of edus was kafir. They denied. V'achach kafar shni, then the second one. So shneim chayavos. So both of them are going to be chayiv in a carbon. They're both going to be chayiv in a carbon. Because the edus could existed by both of them. Now bishlam shnia to chayiv. I understand. We saw this before. The second one, why are you going to be chayiv the hakafar leika rishayna? Because the first one denied it. El rishayna my mechayiv. Why should the first one, first group be chayiv? As we continue to lamed zayin beis, hakayim shnia. The second one is existing. So in other words, there's no kfiras mamayin if the first group lies, but there's a second group. So that second group is already going to support this, and therefore, even though you are lying, but you didn't cause someone to lose money. This is the second kat. So so as we said over there, at the time, the second group, they were related, and therefore they were like pasaledus, and they're the same geisesais. However, their wives were dying. Madatema roiv geises lamisa. So you would think that maybe it's lamisa, and therefore because of that, their edus is good. Even though they're krovim and not really krovim because they're going to die anyway, she's going to die soon. So therefore, we should say that their edus works, and therefore we should actually establish the first one. The first one should the first edus should work. Amashmon hashdamia mias chayininu v'loshchivi. Right now they're still alive. Says Rashi. Kaimon rab geises and lamisa v'havilu kamesais, like they died. V'havli mamon sheshel of edim. So it is a case where there's money with witnesses. Delot techayv rishayna, and because of that, the second group should be believed because even though they're krovim, it's keel like they're not krovim. So therefore, the second group should be believed. And therefore, the first should not be chayiv. So hashdimiya lo shchivi, but now they didn't die. V'avagav the roiv geisel lamisa kolzman dulames chayihu l'chol devarim. This person, they're still alive, so they're still krovim, and therefore their second edus isn't good, and that's the reason why the first ones they will be chayiv. Okay. Tashma. Balabaya shetoin tainis ganav bebikadin. So this goes into some baba kama. So you have a balbayas. He claims that toin tainis ganav bebikadin. He claims that it was stolen regarding a pikadin. V'nishma, he makes a shvuah v'haida, and then he admits to the fact that it's true. Uva edim, witnesses come. So im ad shaloba edim haida. If let's say before the witnesses came, he already admitted. So misham karen b'chaimish asham. So in that case, because moed b'kanas potter, he doesn't pay for the kanas, but he'll have to pay for everything else. And therefore, since he admitted, so he'll only have to pay the karen chaimish and asham. Im mishabo edim haida. If let's say the witnesses came before, his hodah doesn't mean anything, so misham tashmi kef of asham. So he still has to bring the kanas of kefil. Says Rashi, pater atzma ayde geneva, shetoin nignav himeni. Someone says it was stolen. The sherachinam pater geneva. Now we're talking about a case of a sherachinam who's watching this object for free. He's pater from geneva, because it says im nishma. If you make a shvuah, which is that's time tanas ganav bebikadain uva edim witnesses come that it actually is by him. So misham kefel kiganav, he still has to pay kefel. Aval im haida, if let's say he admitted first, so we say it's like modim knas potter. We'll see that in a second. And then afterwards the witnesses came only afterwards. En kan kefel the modim knas potter. There still is a chiyuv of shvus bikadain to have to bring a carbon asham. Okay, good. So al shvus bikadain, he's chiyuv to have to bring kefil and asham. So my answer is hachanami kid ravina. We'll say the same thing as what we said before, like ravina. Amrli ravina l'ravashi tashma. Tamari mimin shvus bikadain. Now we're talking about a case Now, we're trying to still go back to answer our question: what's the din by hasra? What's the din? Is there malchus? Is there still only carbons or both? So over here it says like this: that there's a chiyuv b'mezid malchus, and b'shoigeg is an asham. Asham b'kesh shkol. Now the karmel loika b'chadika edim must be there was witnesses. The kaimer ashkagasa, that if there was obviously means there was witnesses b'shoigeg asham b'kesav shkolim. So what do we see? That b'shoigeg with witnesses, you're chayv a carbon. But mezid you get malchus. So Mulhu Rav Mordechai Rav Bar Minah Tahidi Ha'imru Rav Kahana not Tanina V'Hachi Tanina. So we learn Echaz Zedun V'Echsh Gasa Asham because of Shkolim. It says that you bring a carbon, but not malchus. Fine. Tashma. Lo, Ima Marta Benoser Tamishachin Loike, Tamar Bishos Mikadam Shain Loike. So it says clearly over here, but as we saw before, it shows because you don't get malchus. The Hechadam Ida Loike, Adim, if there's no witnesses, and my Loike. You can never get malchus without witnesses. It's Elab Shitidik Adim, Bagatani Tamar Bishos Mikadam Shain Loike. Milkahu the Lolaki of carbon Maisi. So we see your chayiv a carbon asham, even though there were witnesses against you. So on this, Tiyufta the Ramba, Tiyufta. So in this, the attack is a refutation on the shita of Rabbi. Rabbi Yochanan Omer Hakayfer Mammon Sheishul of Edim Chayev. A person denies money and there's witnesses against you, you are Chayev. A bishtar potter. However, if it's not Edim but there's a star against you, so in that situation you will be potter. Fine. So Amar Papa, my time with Rav Yochanan. Why does Rav Yochanan make this distinction between Edim and a star? So Edim of Maisi, because when it comes to Edim, they could die, right? And therefore, because of that, if you're Kaifer Mamoin with witnesses, so then you're Chayiv. So even though you can say, well, the Edim are going to be making you pay anyway, but since they could die, so you would end up you would maybe get away from paying, and therefore, because of that your denial is something in which is a taking away of money. But shtar hamanach, the star is just sitting there, and therefore because of that, it doesn't make any difference. The fact that it's a star, you're going to lose. So the fact that you lied, you're cut from a mama, and you're not going to be chayiv in that case. Armali Rav Huna Bareda Rav Yeshua Rav Papa shtar nami yavid the mirchas. If we're saying, well, maybe the eight are going to die, so what if the star gets lost? It's the same potential issue, so therefore if the star's not here anymore, so then that's it. Elom Rav Huna Bareda Rav Yeshua Hainu Tam Rav Yochanan. Why does it make a distinction? Mishum Davi Shtar Shibid Karkois. A star is linked to land. Mavin carbon al kvir shibud karkois, and there's no chiv carbon on denial of shibud karkois. Okay, so look at question 10. Omer Rav Yochanan hakayim from b'moment sheishul of edim chayim b'shtar potter. My time Rav Yochanan l'chal ben edim l'shtar b'havamin al maskana. So, in the Havamina, because the Ada may die, but the star, it's over here. But the problem is the star can get lost. So you say because the star is Kfiras Shibid Karkais, and maybe in carbon al Kfiras Shibid Karkos, because the star is linked to land. And therefore, that's the reason why when it comes to a star, you can't there's no din shvu on it. And therefore, you're not going to be chayiv because even if you made a shvuah, there's no shvuah on shibud karkais. Imar mashpia edi karka, and we had this before. This actually, let's look at question TA1. Rabbi Yochanan bar kaifer moment sheishul of edim pater madu b'shtar pater af edim chayiv b'havamin of maskana. So this is obviously the same question. TA1. And this is what it says. B'havamina edim avidid meisi shtar hamonach. V'dochi the shtar nami of the mirchas can get lost. So maskana v'shtar pata to have shibud karkais. Okay. Fine. Itmar mashpia edi karka. A person wants you to make a shvuah regarding land. So the question is, are you chayiv for shvuah to be kadain when it comes to lying about a shvuah on land? So plig Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Lezer. Chadam Rechai B'Chadam Repot is machlokas. So to stand Rabbi Yochanan Repot, but the Rabbi Yochanan on cover of a moment sheshel of Edom Chayiv Shtar Potter. So he says that when it comes to a star, you're Potter. Now Ukin Rav Huna of Yeshua to Stayim. So again, what is the reason why you're Potter? So he said Lamaskana is because it's linked to land. So therefore, we obviously see that Rav Yochanan holds that when you're Kaifer or Mishmal al Karka, that Rav Yochanan is going to be the one who says you're going to be Potter to Stein. So that's a good proof. Amrule Rav Yimu Rav Abu Lema Rav Yochanan Rav Lezer Bepukta Rav Eliezer Rabban. Maybe they're linked to the following machlokes that not. A person who steals a field from his friend, Vishatva Nar, and all of a sudden the river floods it and destroys the field. Chayev Lahamid Loisada, you have to provide another field or its value. Div Rabbi Eliezer. No, you can just say here it is, because you can't steal land. I'm reading about Mike. Rabbi Eliezer Darish Ribu Mute. Rabban Darish Kol Prati. Eliezer Darish Ribu Mute. It says V'chichesh B'amisoi, when a person denies something. So Riva, it's anything. B'pikadain. Again, this is talking about Shavuos Hapikadain. Obashumas Yad Miet. So it's very specific. Mikoil Asher Yishma. Anything, any type of Shavuos, that's called a Riva. So that's more inclusive. So you have Riva made of Riva HaKoil includes everything. My Rabbi Kol Meal, everything. My Miat Shtaris. So the only thing it excludes is when it comes to Shtar, everyone holds there's no din of Chiyuv, of bringing Karban Asham on Shavuos HaPikadain on a Shtar. Rabbanan don't argue with that, but they say it's more inclusive. Darshi Kol Prati, the Chichesh Miso is Klal, more general. Pipikadain Mishamasan, Obi Gezel, I don't know why they add that in there. Prat. Obi Kol Asher Yishmalav is Chaz Kol. Kol Prat. Yata Don El Kana Prat. So what's Kana Prat? Ma Prat, just like the Pratim, Mefurish, Dabar Matad Vigufo Mamoin, these things like something stolen, whatever, these other examples. Chumasyad, Pikadain, these are things which are metaltalin. And the gufo mammon, they have its inherent money, has some real value. Al kavda matal the gufo mammon yotzer karkoshin metaltal. So this is why it excludes land, that's why kark is a machlokas, because it's not metaltal. It's not comparable to like these other items like a pikadain. Yotzer avadim shukshul karkais. We compare avadim to karka. Yotzer shtar shiafa pisha metaltalin in gufo mammon in itself doesn't have any inherent money. It's just like a bottle stop. So man. The one who's chayiv in a Karban Shavuos Pikadain is Rabbi Eliezer, because he holds by land. It is shaykh. That's because it's not excluded. Uman de Patrick Rabbanan who say that land and avodim are excluded. Sermulhu lo man de chayiv Rabbi Eliezer man de Patrick Malach Baha feel Rabbi Eliezer Maida Rachman Amr Mikoil V'lo HaKoil. It says Mikol. So even here, Belezer will agree that no Karban Shvua is made on land, because it says the language Mikoil. So it apparently excludes other things. Question 11. Ksib Parshas Hashavas Hagzela. V'chich Shma Mitu B'Bikadain Oy Mikol Asher Yishba. So my nafki mi ben Rabbi Belezer Darsh Ribo Muti or Kal Prati. We had this before. As you can see on the side. So again, everyone holds when it comes to the din of Hashavas HaGazela that it excludes Karka, but the question is, does it also exclude land and Avadim, which is Hukishul Karkais? Okay. Amra Papa Mishmeda Rava Mastis and Namideka. You can also learn this from our Mishnah, the Ketani. Genafte Shairi. The Mishnah said, as we saw at the end of yesterday's daf, you stole my ox. I didn't steal your ox. When it talks about my Eved, Lokatani, my time, Alamishum, the Eved is Karkos. Then Mivin Carbon al Shibit Karkos. So our Mishnah is clear that we learn out like it's a klal pradu klal, that the din is that it comes to exclude everything. And not everything, but excludes not just stars, but also land and avodim. So our Mishnah obviously is like that shita. or even like Rabbi Lezer, that again, because it says Mikoil, so that's a raya. So Omra Papi Mishmeda Rava Ema Seifa. But the end of the Mishnah says that klal. This is the general rule. Kol Mishalom Al Piatzmoi Chayiv. If let's say you're moided to something, you still have to pay. Moided b'mamon you're chayiv. Shena Mishalom Al Piatzmo Potter, like moided b'kanas, you're gonna be potter. So that glal lesuyimai was coming to include lavi suy kanaftish es avdi. Maybe it's coming to include even if an eved. And therefore, maybe there is a din of chiva shus of carbon osham by shus bikadlan. El mahal lekel mashmina. From this, we cannot deduce anything, whether or not avadim are included or excluded from our Mishnah. Adkan.